Genesis 31, and look at verse 44. Now therefore come thou, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, gather stones, and they took stones and made an heap. And they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it Jegar-sahadutha, but Jacob called it Gilead. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Gilead. And Mizpah, for he said, the Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent one from another. Verse 50, like what a father says, if thou shalt afflict my daughters, if you hurt my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is witness betwixt me and thee. And Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap, and behold this pillar which I have cast betwixt me and thee. This heap be witness, and this pillar be witness. You ever wonder, why are they making those stones a witness? We might look at an inanimate object, or an object that doesn't seemingly have any life. A stone doesn't have life. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't eat. It doesn't, do any of that. But we do know, like what Jesus has said in the Gospels, if these people quit, if they stop calling out and praising me, then the stones will call out and praise me. And I believe with all my heart, I can remember the sermon. I'm sitting in high school chapel, and my principal in the Christian school is saying that we may not realize it, but the walls, they hear what we say. And we may not realize it, but the eyes of the Lord and the ears of the Lord hear everything and see everything, and they can be a witness. If a stone can be a witness in the Old Testament, and if in the New Testament, Jesus says, if they ever stop crying out and praising me, then the stones will cry out. You can better believe that stones could be a witness, and that we need to be careful about our words. Let's move on. Verse 55. And early in the morning, Laban rose up and kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned unto his place. So here we have Laban leaving, and they kind of make nice. He basically says, don't cross over this direction. I won't cross over this to hurt you. You don't cross over this to hurt me. Take care of my family, and we'll be on good terms. Now, I want to point this out here in Genesis, same chapter 31. Actually, go Genesis 31, in verse 22. Genesis 31, verse 22. This goes to the title of the message here. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled, and he took his brethren with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey. It took Laban 7 days to catch up to Jacob and his wives and his children and all the cattle. Verse 24 now. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said unto him, take heed that thou speak not to Jacob, either good or bad. Now, we look at that statement, we think, oh, that's not really a threat there. But what God was doing was asserting his presence with Laban, saying, you better watch how you treat Jacob. And so that's pretty much what God was saying. And God had to put what we call the fear of God into Laban. And it was because of that, and Laban referenced that when he was talking to Jacob. And basically what he was, let's just go there real quick. I want to point that out here. And let's see here. Sorry, I lost it there. But anyways, verse 24, Laban does acknowledge that God met with him, or God spoke to him in a dream. Let me say this right here. God knows how to handle the manipulators. And I want to encourage you here tonight, those people who hurt you, who try to manipulate, maybe they'll affect your career. They might even affect a bonus or a pay raise. Or their words might affect you being decreased or a demotion, or fill in the blank. There's an infinite amount of possibilities. Know this, that God knows how to get a hold of them, and God will. I have to remind myself of that. And I tell you, Just like how when we went through Hebrews during 2020, I believe my faith grew by a much more rapid pace because we went through the book of Hebrews. And I had to get in, and I was doing a lot of research and study, and it was good for me. And I'll tell you, the things that we're going over, the Lord is really emphasizing again in my life. I want to make sure as I preach it that I'm not a hypocrite. I want to make sure as I teach it that I do my best to do this. Now, I'm not perfect, and I don't claim any perfection there. And I try, and I know many of us try. We have our moments, and we're all human, and all that stuff. But let's make sure here that we know and that we're growing, and that we're not allowing our anger to cause things to happen. We're not allowing a vengeful spirit to cause our actions to do certain things. We're not allowing ourselves to be so provoked that we lose control over our actions. And of course, I'm not accusing that of anyone, but there's just certain things that God is saying, okay, now you're preaching this. Yes, sir. And let's make sure that we're all growing together because, and I'm sure many of you are, and probably many of you have already learned your lesson years ago. But I just want to say this. These are great reminders because God does have our phone number. Whether we're saved or not saved, God knows how to get a hold of us. I don't know if Laban was saved here, but God knew how to get Laban's attention. And God will take care, and he will compensate, and he will help us. All right, Genesis 32, verse 1. And Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. Notice this right here. Jacob's going on his way after he had this meeting with Laban. Now it seems like that he and his father-in-law, they've kind of left on good terms finally. Okay, good. That's good. Now Jacob's moving forward still, and here the angels of God are meeting him. Verse 2. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's host." And he called the name of that place, Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau, his brother, unto the land of Seir, the country of Edom. All right, some of you Bible scholars, what does Edom mean? Red, that's right. And what is that in reference to? Esau. Think about this. Look at the last part of verse 3, the country of Edom. Let's contrast now. Jacob was with Laban for 20 years. He's been manipulated. His wages have been changed, he said, 10 times. He's had all kinds of difficulties with old father-in-law Laban, Uncle Laban, now father-in-law Laban. Jacob, who manipulated the birthright and blessing, is now being manipulated by the master manipulator, Laban. And he's just doing his best to eke out a living, so to speak. He's doing his best to scrap out a living. And here over, let's look at Esau. He's got a whole country named after him now. Now, we know, especially in Malachi, how God feels about Esau. Was Esau one of God's preferred? But we do know that God knows how to compensate, and he'll take care of those who have been done wrong, won't he? We're going to see here that one of the messages that that Jacob gives to Esau is that I haven't been back since I left. And we know that because he hasn't been back since he left. He missed the burial of his mother, Rebekah. And Jacob was not there to get the servants and all that. And by all accounts, it looks like Esau got all that. Jacob got none of the blessing, materially speaking, from that, but Esau did. Let's move on. Verse 4, and he commanded them, saying, thus shall you speak unto my lord Esau. So as Jacob is sending messengers in verse 3, he's telling them what to say in verse 4. This is what thus shall you speak unto my lord Esau. Verse 4, thus thy servant Jacob said thus, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now. Okay. Verse 5, I have oxen and asses, flocks and men servants and women servants, and I have sent to tell my Lord that I may find grace in thy sight. Notice his wording now is a little bit different. My Lord. Since when do siblings who are always at each other's throats use the terminology with each other, "Oh, my Lord, may I find grace in thy sight"? There's a big heart change here. Verse 6, and the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him." Now, we know the end of the story, but do your best here. All right, think about this. Do your best to put the end of the story out of your mind, and let's put ourselves in Jacob's position. Jacob just fled from his father-in-law. He's got his 2 wives. He's got 11 sons. I think 10 sons, and maybe Rachel's pregnant with Joseph. But I forget. But anyways, he's got, women and children with him. He's got all this cattle. He cannot move fast. He's in a very vulnerable spot. He doesn't have a ton of, he does have men servants and maid servants, but he doesn't have some army like Abraham did when he took his trained servants and he took them armed and rescued the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah. He doesn't have that kind of protection. And now that he sent his messengers ahead of him to make amends with his brother Esau, and the last words that he heard from his brother Esau was what? "I'm going to kill you." So the last thing he heard, it's been 20 years, he's hoping that maybe time has softened, hard hearts, but now he sees or hears from his servants that Esau's coming with 400 men. Can you see the dangerous situation that Jacob is perceiving at this point? "Oh, Jacob, that's not a..." No, whoa. We don't know. He doesn't know what's going to happen. So what we see here now is Jacob, he jumps out of the frying pan of Laban into the fire of Esau, his brother, and 400, that's what he's thinking, into Esau and 400 men. And Esau was always the rugged hunter. He was always the rugged man. So he's probably got some 400 trained tough guys with him. This 400 is an interesting number. Some Bible scholars believe that 400, which you come at by multiplying 8 by 50, is a divinely perfect period. Now, some people might disagree with that, and that's fine. But God, here's some instances of 400 in the Bible. God made a covenant with Abraham and revealed to him that his descendants will be afflicted in a foreign land for 400 years. We see that in Genesis chapter 15. The count of 400 years also is referenced in Acts chapter 7 and begin with the confirmation of the covenant to Abraham's seed through Isaac. And this event took place from 1845 BC to 1445 BC, 400 years. David, fleeing the wrath of King Saul, ends up in a cave near Adullam. As he resides there, 400 men gather with him in support. One day, David sends 10 of his young men to a wealthy man named Nabal in order to request food. Nabal rudely responds to David's request and sends the young men away empty-handed. David's response is to gather 400 of his fighting men in order to attack and destroy Nabal and all the males who serve him. But Nabal's wife, Abigail, learns what happened, and she appeases David and his wrath. The Persian king Cyrus allows captive Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple that was destroyed by the Babylonians. According to the Bible, after God's temple is rebuilt, it is rededicated with an offering of 400 lambs and other beasts as well, but you can find that in Ezra 6. Abraham's wife Sarah is the only woman in Scripture where her age at death is stated. When she dies at the age of 127, Abraham buys a cave of Machpelah in Hebron for 400 shekels of silver. Elijah openly challenges the 450 false prophets of Baal and Jezebel's 400 false prophets of the groves to meet him at Mount Carmel. We see that God is in the number of 400. And of course, the children of Israel came out of Egypt after 400 years, and God was in that. But Jacob doesn't know where Esau's heart is in that. Obviously, the messengers got back before Esau and his 400 men. They came back to warn him. Look at verse 7 now, Genesis 32. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him and the flocks and the herds and the camels into two bands. Here we go. Jacob got triggered here. We're going to see what happens when Jacob gets triggered. It seems that when he is afraid and distressed, he kicks into manipulation mode. And this is how he deals with his fear and stress. Verse 8. And he said, if Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. So he's already trying to decide who he's willing to lose. Okay. You guys go in the first company. Can you imagine? Oh, I thought you liked me. No, go in the first company. If he kills them, then we can escape. Verse 9. Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham. Oh, here we show some progress in Jacob's life. We show that Jacob now is praying. He's praying to God. O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which said unto me, return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. Verse 10, I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies. Here we have a humbling. Can I say this right here? As God does help Jacob, notice that God won't help a proud person. He'll help a humble person. And we see Jacob humbling himself. And he says, I'm not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan. Now I am become two bands. Verse 11, here we go. Deliver me, I pray. That he's asking God to deliver him. Guess that is a prayer of faith. He's asking for God to save him from his brother. Let me say this right here. If we humble ourselves and we go to God and we pray and ask God to help us in areas, God is likely inclined to help us in areas. Of course, I'm not going to say that our prayers are handcuffing God, and I'm not speaking for God, but we see here there are patterns that when we humble ourselves and we come before God, He will help. And He's asking here, deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother and from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me and the mother with the children. And thou saidst, verse 12, I will surely do thee good, and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. So he prayed, and now verse 13, he lodged there that same night, and took of that which came to his hand a present for Esau his brother. So verse 14, 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams. Verse 15, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 kine, 10 bulls, 20 she-asses, and 10 foals. So this is the big gift that he's trying to give to Esau to pacify his anger. And again, he's taken matters into his own hands here. Verse 16, and he delivered them into the hand of his servants. Every drove by themselves, and said unto his servants, pass over before me, put a space betwixt drove and drove. And he commanded the foremost, saying, when Esau my brother meeteth thee, and asketh thee, saying, whose art thou? And whither goest thou? And whose are these before thee? Then thou shalt say, these be thy servant Jacob's. It is a present sent unto my lord Esau. And behold, also he is behind us. And so he commanded the second and the third and all that followed the drove, saying, on this manner shall you speak unto Esau when you find him. And say ye, moreover, behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us, for he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth before me, and afterward I will see his face. Peradventure he will accept of me. Verse 21, so went the present over before him, and himself lodged that night in the company. So here we have Jacob's already sending, because it looks like he's at least a day or so, if not more, there's a day or so of traveling between Esau and Jacob. And so Jacob's already sent the present before him. So Jacob lodges that night with the company. Verse 22, and he rose up that night and took his 2 wives and his 2 women servants and his 11 sons and passed over the ford at Jabbok. And he took them and sent them over the brook and sent over that he had. Verse 24, and Jacob was left alone. There wrestled a man with him, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. Here we have that just how when Jacob leaves Uncle Laban, father-in-law Laban, and comes over and a band of angels was there to meet him, the messengers of God. Now there is, he wrestled with a man until the breaking of day. Now all of a sudden he's separated himself with his family, and all of a sudden, boom, then there's this other encounter with God. God knows how to get our attention. And And we see, and many of us know that he wrestles with this man, and he wrestles with him all night. And the time comes for him to go back to heaven, and he says, let me go. Do you really think that if an angel wanted a human man to let him go, he would be able to just brush him off? Absolutely. But I believe this was also a test to see how bad Jacob wanted God's blessing and God's help in his life. And I'll tell you that if we in prayer and through importunity and vigilance and have this determination that we're going to stick with God and we're going to cling to God, and God's going to take me wherever he wants to take me, and God's going to do whatever he wants to do with me, and God, I trust you, and God, I'm not going to let you go, even though it's been all night, and I know that you probably don't want this to happen, but I'm not going to let you go, God. Hey, I believe, just like Jacob, that if we don't, if we persevere in prayer, and if we persevere in spending time with God, God will bless us. The problem comes is, do we want it? Do you want it? Do you want God's blessing on you bad enough that you personally are willing to suffer to get God's blessing? I'm not going to ask you a question, but I wonder if anyone in here has ever tried watching all night. Watching what? Fox? No, I'm not. Watching meaning you're staying up all night and you're spending time with God and you don't get any sleep. It's not an easy thing. This is pretty much what Jacob had. Not only did he watch, but he wrestled with this man. Are we willing to allow God to make us suffer a little bit to get his blessing? God will bless you, but you got to cling on. Notice that God didn't bless a perfect man, did he? He blessed a man that had a problem. But this was a man that was growing. We see that he was praying to God. Oh, dear God, my brother Esau's coming with 400 men. Dear God, help me, deliver me, dear God. Oh, there's growth. God, I am not worthy of what the things that you've done for me in a great way. Lord, I need you. There's a humbling. There's faith. Oh, dear friend, tonight, eye hath not seen nor ear hath heard, neither hath entered into the heart of man the things that God has prepared for them. I think sometimes our convenience and our comfort allows apathy to abound. I'm not saying sell all you have and live on the street. Don't misunderstand me. But this is the danger here. We put God in a box and say, I'll serve God as long as it's convenient and easy. Whoa. That's not the God I serve. God will bless you, but he doesn't give it just to someone who's not willing to sacrifice for it. And he did touch the hollow of Jacob's thigh. And I believe that every time Jacob took a step, and he had to have a cane, every time he took a step, it was a reminder that God's in control. I don't need to manipulate the situation. I don't need to control the situation. I believe that God touching the hollow of Jacob's thigh and making him limp, the sinews shrank, as the Bible said, I believe that was God's reminder to him, hey, I got this. I'm in control. And I'm going to encourage you tonight, let's learn from the story of Jacob. And we see growth in Jacob. Praise God for growth in Jacob. And God still blessed Jacob, but that didn't mean Jacob was right. God's mercy a lot of times gives us that grace, and praise God for that. Let's make sure that we hold on to God.